Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome, everyone. This is Sidra Iqbal here, and welcome to our webinar. We are once again with you for the next an hour, and of course, we'd love to keep this as interactive as possible. I'm so happy to see that our series has been doing so well. I'm told last count tak हमारा जो पिछला discussion रहा, it has reached about 1.5 million views. Very thankful for that, and it has been very engaging because बहुत सारे लोगों ने मुझे ही मेरा discussion वापस forward किया, which means that the conversations are resonating with all of you. Today, once again, we'd like to talk about social impact, but we'd like to look at organizations that start off with having the social impact as a part of their ethos. We of course know them as the social enterprises. बहुत सारे लोग इसको confuse करते हैं. They assume that a social enterprise is not focused on making profits. It's all about community, it's charitable work perhaps. No, social enterprises are different. Usually these are community-based organizations and they are going global. They have global practices, they have global models, and they'd like to bring in and make it into a local solution. They keep the local insights in mind. And most importantly, this is strategic innovation. Society का कोई भी एक अहम मसला जिसमें ये लगते हैं कि through a commercial enterprise, through an entrepreneurial effort, they'll be able to solve it and make people more independent. Achha, the best part is now youngsters have the Sustainable Development Goals as a brilliant blueprint for them. They can look at the SDGs and they can see what the world is focused on. Very recently, we had the 7-Eleven Plus Innovation Challenge, which was all about finding green energy solutions, and it actually involved academicians, students, enterprises. They actually linked them with venture capitalists and made it all happen. Likewise, I have just come back from Paris, where the Women's Forum Global Meeting was happening. Again, the leaders, the various champions in their own firms, organizations, communities were focused on three themes: climate, peace, as well as health for women. So I think pumped up with all that information. I'm very excited about our conversation today, and we have a brilliant panel for you. First and foremost, यहाँ पे I'd like to welcome the team lead at Impact Dashboard, which is an impact-driven narrative specialist company that inspires lasting social change through authentic, socially conscious narrative building. It's so important to get your story out there, why we do what we do, and it allows us to get that, that feedback from the community to do it even better. So, of course, leading this team, we have Sara Rasik with us. Assalamu alaikum, Sara.
Walaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me on today.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for sparing your Saturday afternoon for us. अच्छा जी, हमारे साथ यहाँ पे मौजूद हैं the CEO of Feedsol, which is a supply chain and procurement. He's a supply chain and procurement expert who has 22 years of working experience. Feedsol के बारे में आपको बताते चलें कि it's a social enterprise developed by Engro, Zeet Ventures, and FMO. It offers quality, nutrition-rich, and affordable animal feed products to smallholder and medium-sized dairy farmers, and it of course improves the health of the livestock, increase the milk yields, and improve the dairy farming economics in Pakistan, which by the way needs a lot of attention. We have with us Dr. Rizwan Hussain Bukhari. Thank you so much, Rizwan Sahab, for being here with us. And last but definitely not the least, I'm very happy to also welcome Fahad Mahmood Khan, who is the CEO of Humane Tech. It has founded the world's first and only private 911 service, Muhafiz, with a focus on serving the masses in the developing countries. Humane Tech is a social enterprise which helps anyone and everyone experiencing a life-threatening emergency. They've up till now handled more than 50,000 emergencies and saved up to 10,000 lives. Thank you so much. हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं Fahad. Fahad, it's a pleasure to welcome you to our conversation as well. First and foremost,
thank you very much, Sidra.
फाद आप ही से शुरुआत करते हैं. मुझे बताएं कि when a community responds with a social enterprise, with the heart of at the heart of its operations, the will and the vision to actually solve a societal problem, what are some of the problems that you might face? Why is it challenging? Is the challenge getting like-minded people? Is it the bigger challenge is to get them to stay and grow with you? How do you balance the urge to make absolute profits with the idea of serving the society?
Okay, I think this is a very lovely question because I faced this like in the past 8 years, having been doing this, I faced this a lot. The thing is, we're a very distrustful society. So we really don't trust people when they say we're doing something good, and that it's a double bottom line thing. I've been asked this by the government as well. In fact, in one session, I was asked, okay, why are you doing this? And this is like a huge authority that asked me, why are you saving lives, right? Why are you doing this? And I was like, I was like, I just saw that there was a need, and I realized there was no 911 system in Pakistan, and I wanted to work towards it. So he kept on pestering me till one of his seniors said he's doing it because we're not doing it. And so the thing is, when you our entire relationship with charity, there are two things. One, people don't expect that somebody will do good. Two, they don't expect that anything that they're doing will be monetized. Because we've had a very long history of working with charities in Pakistan, right? So people don't understand. So it's very binary for them. It's either pure business, which is pure capitalism and pure shark-like mentality, or pure philanthropy. What they don't understand is that there is actually a line where every business has the potential to do both, right?
Right.
Which is why big organizations have actually started embracing this. Like, I was talking to one major FMCG. I don't know if I can take names here or not, but I was talking to the CEO of one of these FMCGs, and he was like that all of our brands now support equality. So one brand is focused on gender equality, one brand is focused on, on hygiene and all of that, and the focus is becoming towards having a double impact, so having an impact on your bottom line and then having an impact on your on society.
Right.
But having this conversation in Pakistan is very difficult because people either take you and file you in the philanthropy part or in the business part.
I think it's years and years of actually assuming that anybody who's in the commercial field of things and who's selling things at a profit or providing a service at a profit, they cannot be trusted. So I
Yeah.
believe there has been trust in brands' names and their own credibility that they are selling something which they really mean. But overall, when they are generating profits, when they're you know the heart of it is somehow found to be missing. But taking it further, मैं आपकी तरफ आना चाहूंगी रिजवान, मुझे ये बताएं कि Pakistan has been an agrarian economy for the last 75 years. And we take a lot of pride in that we are food sufficient. A lot of our exports over time have been, again, crop-based exports have been happening, be it be textile, be it be wheat or rice or anything else. My question is, when we look at the strata who's been directly involved with cultivation, their quality of life has not been uplifted. In fact, they continue to be at the bottom of the chain. So when I am assuming a social enterprise steps in, they are trying their best to look after the farmers and to improve the lives of dairy farmers and everybody who's been a stakeholder in this. आपका क्या ख्याल है कि गैप कहाँ पे मौजूद है? Who should be made responsible for the well-being of this strata of the people who are linked with that industry and trade?
Thank you, Sidra. This is a very alarming question nowadays and a serious concern of the society as well. Actually, if we analyze the data, the 85% of the land holding is with the small and medium-sized farmers. And the best practices are lying with the commercial farmers or the commercial entities with land holdings. So the question is that the best practices that are with the landlords are not coming down to the smallholders. So the efficiency as well as the productivity of the crop of the lowland people has been a serious concern for a decade now. On the side by side, if we see the livestock, then the productivity of the livestock being the fourth largest country in the is the Pakistan, and the productivity per animal has been so low that it cannot fulfill the dire needs of the society, and so we are unable to export, being a large herd size in this country. So as a feed sol, we plan to develop a bridge between the agri farmers as well as the livestock holders in two concepts. First,
Say.
by increasing the productivity of the lowland farmers, medium and the small livestock farmers, as well as the agri farmers. When we increase the productivity of the farmers that are growing maize and wheat and other crops, so they will get benefit out of it, and bridging it to the livestock farmers by providing them the well nutritious and enriched in the energy and the protein foods to their animals, being animal welfare concept. So by developing this bridge, when the animal, if you see the lactation curve of the animal in Pakistan, you see that in December and January, when there is animal comes in a comfort zone, at the same time, animal feels deficiency in their nutrition and their fodder, and so feed sol came into being with the same concept that in days where there is a fodder shortage, where there's a animal feed shortage, we will come across with a solution with the help of the small landholder farmers by bringing their maize crop
Right.
into the silage and other feed things to be readily available for the small livestock holders at a reasonable prices with the margins nominal to run the business as well as to develop the local community all
अच्छा,
around.
it's very interesting, Dr. Rizwan, कि हम जब ये बात आपसे कर रहे हैं इस वक्त there is a lot of chaos around poultry farming, especially because there is that issue of the feed being stuck at the ports, and if that continues to be, तो कह रहे हैं कि egg and chicken की जो supply side है पाकिस्तान की वो काफी affect होगी. But we'll come to that. I'd like to now go over to Sarah. Sarah, there are brilliant things that social enterprises are doing, big organizations are doing. लेकिन आप क्या समझती हैं कि whenever, especially your work, when your work is focused on impact driven, on communication, तो उसमें मुझे ये लग रहा है कि you might be sometimes accused of greenwashing. All the organizations are actually, the firms themselves have been usually told that they're greenwashing, and they're perhaps tooting their own horn. How do you deal with that kind of a critique that comes your way?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. I think that sometimes it is very valid to be critical of social enterprises as well, especially when they're not disrupting capitalism or when they're not working within a very revolutionary capacity.
Right.
At Impact Dashboard, so we create narratives around, CSR projects, impact-driven projects. We utilize the IDA model, which includes attention, interest, desire, and action. And in Pakistan, we aren't even able to effectively capture the interest or the attention of people when it comes to sustainability-related efforts. And so that is the gap that, in my work, as you asked, we aim to fill. The biggest issue or obstacle related to this has to do with the very scale of the projects that we often work on. We're creating narratives around projects that we aim to make as consolidated as possible. We like to have multifaceted stakeholders be a part of our project to, again, meet the diverse needs and the diverse material realities of people in Pakistan. That way, when we can connect with people on a very real level and also meet their needs and speak to their needs, that's when we can take, theory. That's when we can take things that may seem tokenistic, that may seem to be, for example, aligning themselves with things like greenwashing or pinkwashing, and make them material. I think when people see change, I think when people see the impact of, again, just talk, that is when they're able to really align themselves with a specific project or narrative or mission or vision. And that's what we aim to do, to create a consolidated narrative that accounts for these diverse perspectives and needs.
But Sarah, again, I have a two-part question for you. There are times when you will find that media and perhaps the channels that are covering these stories, they're not very bothered about good stories, about pushing these nuggets of information, the case studies out to the audience. That's one end of it. And then secondly, for people who can actually render a credible voice to your storytelling or to that narrative building, do you see that there is a gap? I mean, there are very few people in Pakistan who are looked up to, have we created heroes and advocates in this realm that people are willing to listen to, or people feel that they have the right background, they have the right credentials to be pushing for a certain cause?
No, that's a great question as well. And that is why we have actually developed a database of public
Mhm.
opinion leaders, like you mentioned. Those include journalists. And we look to curate a distribution network of not only print, not only digital, but again, a consolidated way of engaging people within urban, rural, semi-urban settings. So that again, what we're speaking is relevant to the needs and the material realities and the worldviews of people. And we also make sure that we're not just catering to one specific demographic. And so
Mm.
that's the difference, I would say, in simply just marketing or amplifying a certain effort versus creating a holistic, transformative narrative around it. That
Mm.
again does engage these public opinion leaders, that does engage people who have established themselves as credible members of a community or credible members of a movement. And so engaging them is definitely a part of our very scientific approach to narrative building. And I think what you said is so valid. Engaging these people helps not only establish credibility of the movement, but of us as well, who may be creating the structure and the foundation around it.
Bilkul. Again, I think it's just like a lot of people would be pointing out in our comments as well. By the way, thank you so much, guys, for being so engaged and being so present. May I get a thumbs up from people who are, who are listening to our panelists and who are resonating with the comments and their insights about the industries? Give us a thumbs up in the comments, and we'll definitely be sharing that. Coming to you, Fahad, you've been in the space for about 8 years now, all over the world, and I've been to forums which are like the social enterprise forums for certain countries. Scotland, for example, has a robust policy framework to encourage social entrepreneurs to take the leap, welcome more small and medium-sized social enterprises to come in, serve the people, have an integrated approach towards societal elements. Is Pakistani policy framework giving any incentive to social entrepreneurs at the moment?
No, not as far as I know. To be honest, it's just a different. It's considered to have the same value prop as any other business. Um, um, so it's not given any sort of special discount in taxation or any sort of incentive to do this. In fact, whenever you try and from my personal experience, whenever I've come face to face with any aspect of the government, we've always faced more of resentment and pushback than anything else. I think you know as far as policies are concerned, even our basic entrepreneurship policies are still very regressive. It is only very recently that you've been able to come up with a change in the policy which allows now Pakistanis to hold stakeholdership in companies abroad. Or be founders in companies outside of Pakistan. So we're getting there, but it's a slow process. It's really not conducive to social impact or organizations as of right now. Yes, a lot is being done globally, and I just wish the same follow through was available in Pakistan.
And what is your definition of social enterprise for a country like Pakistan? Like, if you pick up our challenges, I sometimes feel that if we don't have a valid definition in our context, then almost every organization in the country can be a social enterprise. But to give it a more solid definition, Fahad, what are some of the pillars of defining an organization to be an effective social enterprise?
So anything as far as I know, and I've only walked the talk basically, but so I've never really verbalized it before. But if I were to look at it, I think a business has to generate intrinsic and extrinsic value both for it to qualify as a business. When it serves the customer, it has to serve a particular need which is not being served when it comes to the citizens' quality of life, or the quality of welfare that person gets. So it has to, like some may argue that soda is something that adds value to the lives of the people who drink it on a hot day. But I would say that if anybody can solve Karachi's garbage problem and do it at a profit, I think we'll all be wiser and better because of it,
And
right?
happier.
Uh, yeah, yeah, and
So, I mean,
happier. So like for instance, hmm,
yes. My example of that would be again strategic innovation. And I came across these brilliant examples. We often talk about how our judicial system or our legal system is lacking. And there are people who fall into that trap of vicious crime because of their life
hmm,
circumstances, because of poverty,
hmm,
because of
hmm,
anything which has happened to them.
hmm,
And we
hmm,
seldom talk about our entire system is very retributive. We want to punish them, but
hmm,
then we don't
hmm,
assume, okay, once he's out of the jail or once he's out of the prison and he's paid the penalty for doing the
hmm,
wrongdoing,
hmm,
what happens to his life again? So, an example of that
hmm,
is there
hmm,
is a UK based catering company that is hiring only, and somehow the team has come together of all former inmates of prison who now want to have a restart at
hmm,
life, and they have chosen to become
hmm,
caterers. So that's one example.
hmm,
uh,
hmm,
Likewise,
hmm,
if you have certain marginalized communities and they're not getting a foot in the door, if you put them together, if you
hmm.
make them into a community based organization and give them a promise of another life, of a different life, then that also qualifies as a social enterprise. Dr. Rizwan, आपकी तरफ
Have
आना
you,
चाहती
Sidra?
जी फहद.
Just just to add to what you're saying, it's
Hmm.
not so our prisons aren't really prisons. Our prisons are also our rural areas, right? A
Hmm.
lot of the people who come out of our rural areas escape to the city. They escape to the city for quality of work. Although if you look at it, like for instance, Thedi in Sindh has a huge potential to become a date exporter
Hmm.
and to or places like Bannu have immense potential to produce some of the best leather factories or some of the best stones from that region, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't have cleaners over there, you don't have that. So entrepreneurship in itself has a lot of impact in uplifting a society no matter where it is. If you look at Karachi right now, you look at Islamabad and Lahore, a lot of the drain on these cities is because the rural support setup that you require to start businesses, to enable people to run their lives over there in the rural areas, to make smaller cities become bigger cities and the bigger cities become like metropolitans, that also does not exist. So
Very true.
any
In fact,
company.
that's a perfect background for me to segue into my next question. Dr. Rizwan, this is the first time in the history of Pakistan that we have more people living in the urban areas or suburban areas as compared to the rural areas. So now, when we even look at people who've been, agriculturists and they have been farmers and they've been landowners for many generations, there is now a tendency to lease out their land, get locals or perhaps the people who are willing to still cultivate it to be there. Whereas the younger generation that had the resources, got the education, they don't want to live in the rural areas anymore. So I think that's where Fahad's argument of younger people or the new generation seeking quality of life, a different lifestyle, which is perhaps not available in the rural lands, is becoming more and more important. How and what does that mean for our for our lands and for our farmers? And perhaps is there a way this younger generation could find maybe tech-based solutions, and technology can be a game changer and get them to be interested back in their lands, get them back, because then they will feel like they're pushing the curve, they're doing something new, they're not doing the age-old farming. In fact, they are, perhaps reinventing the way things are done.
Yes, Sidra, actually, the social entrepreneurs and social enterprises are working in a way to by solving an issue of a farmer and serving the need on the other hand of the other community members all
Hmm.
around. So this is a bridge between the issues as well as the needs. By doing all this through the technology means, as well as through accelerating the best practices, as well as being a partner in a sustainable development, as well as being a partner with the small stakeholders, by assuring that their outcomes will be sold at an appropriate price and will be delivered to the consumers with proper taglines, with proper quality norms, and getting the maximum benefit out of it. and making sure its availability to the growers side by side can help us to improve the lives of the poor community and the poor farmers all around. And actually, the thing which is happening right now is this social enterprise concept is developing in Pakistan to bring a positive change. I have seen a number of people that are visiting us to know this how these social enterprises are working. They have their rural backgrounds, they have their lands, and now they have evaluated the gap between the issues as well as the consumer demands. And the innovation has enabled them to develop new ways, new means for all this. In recent past, we have seen that the yields of the maize crop have been so low, and the farmers were not earning a lot of money amount of value out of it. But on the other side, government of Pakistan, especially Sindh Board of Investment, worked along with these peoples and provided them machinery and the technical tools to these small farmers, enabling them to convert their crop into the animal feed. So a step ahead, now they are able to earn comparatively better profits as compared to their older ones, which were just selling their crop to the middleman and were serving
So
the
basically,
middleman rather than to the community.
yeah, the
So
whole
this is the change.
structure of how business is done is being sort of revisited. Dr. Rizwan, if I may ask you to also comment on the fact, how is it changing the societal setup? Like, when we say that it just cannot be driven towards improving the production or the yield per acre or the crops and the, how much of milk are we collecting. We're already the seventh largest milk producing country in the world, and perhaps there's a lot of wastage. What I'm also interested in is it changing the way we look at, perhaps, for example, women? Now I know a lot more women are entering into the dairy farming realm. How else is the change coming on? Are the older people who've been in the business and who've been running things in a certain way listening to the younger generation who are coming with perhaps tech-based solutions? Are they changing the way women are involved in the whole business of it? So what are some of those changes which are coming about in society?
Yes, if you see, in more than 20 years ago, the women's were not an active part of the society, especially for the livestock and agriculture. But now, if we see that females are being and playing their role actively along with the men, and the backyard farming is a best example of this. That the females of the small farmers are playing their vital role in enabling their economy to smooth and sustainable level by growing the female heifers, by growing the male calves, and getting maximum benefit out of it during by selling those calves at the Eid, and rearing the heifers to make them new cows and selling them at better prices. So this part has been deployed in the society with the help of the community females that came out of their houses, took up this challenge and worked with their men and came to a better solutions. And we know the history has tell us that more than 20-25 years ago, when females come out of their homes, it seems to be very strange. But now education and awareness has brought them up to a level. Now the females are coming out of their homes to get a good education, to get their skills enhanced, and to work with their males. And even they are running independent businesses at their local community levels and
Sure.
earning a good money for their family and to make their kids to
So
live a
that
happy
change
and
is
healthy
coming.
lives.
That change is coming, and there is, of course, a greater understanding of what they can do as a family together and provide opportunities to many more. Sarah, I'd like to come back to you. Please tell me that when somebody looks at a great idea and they would like to perhaps be a startup company, a social enterprise, what are, in your opinion, some of the opportunities and challenges that they can face when it comes to getting their story out? If, for example, it's a great idea, but they have been bootstrapping and now they need to raise funds, what is the role of A? How effectively do you think they naturally are putting their stories out there? And what is the usual feedback that they get? Are the people who are ready to invest in their businesses believe in the ideas and the spirit of social enterprise, or they're always counting dollars and cents?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. On that topic, I do want to mention that in Pakistan, we cannot actually register ourselves as a social enterprise. The confines of the current system simply do not recognize this relationship between, number one, being a profit-generating entity, but also creating positive social impact. So one of our board members and one of our board members and partners, Seed Ventures, is actually in collaboration with SDPI to draft social enterprise legislation. They will be presenting it at the Senate so that we can then begin to register ourselves as social enterprises, in Pakistan. Impact Dashboard and so many other entities, we work within a social enterprise model. But at the end of the day, we're often registered as a for-profit entity, some are as NGOs, but ultimately just registering ourselves as social enterprises, given that it's not even something that, entities are able to do, that I think is the starting point to drive change and perception about social enterprises that can generate a profit and also create positive impact. To the second half of your question, sorry, go ahead.
No, please complete your answer, Sarah. I just wanted you to perhaps also talk about how impact can be quantified. How do we actually gauge it? Because it's so much easier to perhaps look at the numbers and say, okay, you're making great profits. This is the return back to your stakeholders and shareholders. But how do we actually quantify impact is also something I thought I'd prick your brains about.
I will definitely get to that as well. That's a very important thing, the research methodology to really interact with, the target audience segments to make sure that, again, projects are actually meeting their social or environmentally conscious related goals. But before I get to that, I also think that we must recognize that when discussing the privatization of public interest or when we're looking to theorize, for example, in this case, social enterprise discourse in a neoliberal era, we must focus in on and center on the working class people and their material realities. This is what I think also helps, startups identify structural gaps that are currently present, but then create a very natural demand, I would say, for support for any entity willing to offer it. That's also kind of my take on the relationship between the state or the government and these new startups who are looking to enter, a certain market or offer a certain, impact-driven service. And so again, identifying that gap and then, driving it home by backing it up with the material needs of working class people. When it comes to actually delivering or executing a service, initiative, a project, a program, like you mentioned, there need to be research methodologies embedded within the mechanisms of, whoever's leading it, whether it's an enterprise, whether it's a narrative building company, whoever it may be, to actually consult the target audience and see whether their material realities, again, are being improved or are being affected in whatever way, negative or positive, by the program in question. Personally, at ID, at Impact Dashboard, we conduct, surveys. We conduct, an analysis of target audience segments. We conduct media content analysis to make sure that the messaging even that we're putting across is socially conscious, is culturally sensitive, is aligned with the worldviews of people within different settings. And again, that goes back to the database that we have put together of public opinion leaders in not just any one certain district, not just urban settings or rural settings or semi-urban settings, but across, across the scale to make sure that we're able to speak to the worldviews and the ethos that do constitute diverse Pakistanis.
Very true. Very true. And also, I think because of positive storytelling and ownership from the society and the community, we see several examples in Pakistan who have great credibility, and not just credibility, they have been able to scale up. Like if we look at examples of Shaukat Khanam Hospital or the Indus Hospital Network, they have now, made a footprint in almost every province of Pakistan. They're really scaling up. Fahad, my question to you would be, what more can be done to allow social enterprises who have this amazing, heart of gold kind of a vision to do good for society? I'm sure other organizations do, but social enterprise really puts it at the center of their operations. What more can the policymakers do to allow them to scale up more and to really increase their outreach and perhaps even look at greater public private partnership opportunities with them?
To be honest, I think two of the major areas that you can focus on is one, the government should get out of the business of competing with businesses.
Hmm.
It should allow businesses to do what they do, and the government should do what it does, what it's designed to do, which is that it is designed to be a regulator, right?
Hmm.
Government regulates businesses. It doesn't compete in businesses. So
Hmm.
anything and everything that you're doing right now should be a service that is billed, and the government should regulate the profit margin on any business, right? So that
Right.
the consumer has a voice, the consumer is able to speak, the consumer is able to decide what service provider he wants to work with for whatever amenity. And at that point, if that service provider is charging a lot more, either the people will reject it or the government will enforce regulation on top of it. So that's one role as a regulator and not as a competitor. One. Two, it needs to enable new companies with these ideas with proper tax benefits. Like, um, any company engaging in and not just social impact, but any company starting off should be given tax benefits because it creates jobs. And that in itself is a huge impact, right? In a country where you have 60% of the population as youth, you've got a very vibrant economy of the future if you really work on them today. And the only way to work on them is to give them credible and um, any sort of gainful employment that they can be a part of.
But Fahad, that
So
that
the
makes
government,
us sort of, that leaves us with an impression, perhaps, that all enterprises are very heavily taxed in Pakistan. I think yes, that could be a pain point for some people, but I think the ease of doing business, the ease of procuring the like-minded people, having spaces, they are much more pressing issues. We learned of some amazing initiatives by various organizations that were trying to help social enterprise. I mean, the KE Awards comes to mind, where they announce a big, a reward, but the reward is not about giving this money out in cash, but allowing
I'm
you to
sorry
sort of.
if you could repeat that.
Yeah, Fahad, we have a great example when it comes to K Electric when they have K Electric Awards for social enterprises. Like, again, they are trying to acknowledge the organizations that are doing great work, are making positive impact, but rather than just handing out money or allowing them to have like a tax holiday, they're in fact offsetting the certain announced reward against their utility bills. So, I mean, there are various ways of helping it out. I think the
I
focus on
agree.
tax it itself is sometimes, I think, it becomes a deal breaker. There's so much more
So the
that
thing
needs to.
is, tax is very heavy. I agree. Tax is very heavy on all businesses. But
Hmm.
the thing is, you've got to also measure the impact that they have in terms of employment. Because
Hmm.
Sidra, let's face it, every youth that you take off the street adds, to the overall security picture of the country as well. All of the crime that you have right now, majority of it is because gainful employment isn't available. And you're doing this, and the government really can't do anything to reduce either of these metrics. They
Hmm.
can't create more jobs. You've seen the examples of PIA and Pakistan Railways and all the overly staffed government entities that we have. And then you've also seen the impact that the government has on crime control or
Hmm.
development control.
Hmm.
So by giving these concessions, you're actually enabling businesses to do better, hire more people, increase their scale and spread, and actually leave a footprint where it matters. So I agree. There's no one way to look at this problem. There are multiple ways to look at this problem, but taxation is definitely something which is directly within the government's purview.
Okay.
Except for these
Fahad,
two roles.
very true. Let's see how our viewers have been responding to the conversation so far. We've had some wonderful comments come in. People have been engaged, and there are quite a few to look at. People are talking about several significant opportunities. This is by Ali Imam. Several significant opportunities for improvements emerged that span across the areas measured by doing business report and relate to the interactions between the government and the private sector. Farhaj Khan says insecurities and injustice destroy Pakistan's startups. So there's more that needs to be done. Startup have to be following some policy, and taxation as a stable big firm followed. I believe, Fahad, he's building upon your point. I certainly see your point resonating with a lot of young people, that they see the high taxes to be one of the things that turns them away. Ali Imam again says startup activity has surged in Pakistan as businesses emerge to meet labor market demands, but the country still lags behind. Okay, Kamran Khilji, very informative topic: how small entrepreneurs can stabilize themselves in the current situation. Moving on, Mohsen Khan doesn't have a comment. Mo Zaidi says, I believe startups can become an avenue to kick off sustainability and value add projects like biofuel generation, biofuel power generation, alternate to building material, etc. I do pray these areas are invested into and startups are guided to progress in this direction. Our country is in dire need. I think that's a great point to build up on. Dr. Rizwan, if I may bring this to you. This again is talking about innovation. There are some social enterprises that are trying to do a particular idea or implement an idea in a society or a community where it hasn't been done before. But just like we were saying, technology plays an important role. Now, new algorithms are coming up. People are developing apps which were previously, for example, not there in the agriculture business. Now you can forecast the climate conditions, the weather conditions. You can perhaps technology come to your aid. Is there incentive for exploring these new avenues, or people are just taking it as a high risk, high return proposition?
Actually, there are two ways to see this. One
Mm-hmm.
is that first, the technology that enables the farmers to cultivate their crops at a time when the season supports them, and simultaneously harvest the crops when the season supports them. So this has become able through the technology, and the technological tools are now available through different apps, and through different media companies are also involving to invest in this business as an industry. For a
Yeah.
small scale entrepreneurs, we are encouraging the university graduates, agri graduates to come into this sector to develop the apps where the temperature, rain, wind speed, etc., like the rains, can be predicted, and the soil fertility through the pH levels, through their other soil tests, who will help the farmers to make him guide that which crop will be the best for his land in days to come. At the
Right.
same time, it has become the major responsibility of the government to save this wastage, that farmers are not being given some plans from the government that which crop they need to sow in which area to fulfill the demand. Because I feel that most of our revenues have been wasted in make the products travel from here to there, from here to there. So if there is a proper plan, then the plan can be given to the farmer that this much tonnage is required for this particular crop, like potato, like maize, like wheat, in this particular segment. And from this area, it will be shifted to the nearby areas with the least cost of the logistics. So
Very
what is
true.
happening right now? In certain areas, farmers through these technological tools are producing more numbers, achieving bigger goals, but at the same time facing the issues that they don't get a better prices for their productivities.
Very
So
true.
they are wasting their margins in logistics as well, to sending their crop to the far areas where in order to get just a good price. So if the government plays a role in its proper planning, that in district wise or tehsil wise levels, government should given plans to the farmer community that this much vegetable, this much onions, this much sugarcane, this much wheat, this much maize crop is need of our society, as well as these
Right.
seeds are required
So
for export
basically,
purposes.
what you're pointing towards is using this information, this data to our advantage, where weather can be forecasted, prices can be set, incentives can be given, and you can actually plan and manage crops better. I mean, a lot of foreign consultants, when they look at Pakistan's agricultural base, they say we have the land, we have the soil, we have the hardworking people, the right climate, but unfortunately, things don't move forward because there's no integration in the various stakeholders and what they're trying to come up as a vision or as a strategy. Now, I really like the agri business comment made by Mo. In fact, I want to go back to his earlier comment where he was talking about how at various food festivals we see these small enterprises which are doing great work. Again, there is the positive impact of providing employment, perhaps providing a livelihood to a vulnerable community, many families, but then they are making mistakes as using aluminium bags or not using recycled materials or using a lot of plastic packaging. Sarah, my last question to you would be, when we talk about coming up with methodologies to actually gauge impact, sometimes I'm sure you are also at loggerheads, and the loggerheads comes in where a person or an enterprise is doing something with the thought, with the vision that this is going to serve the community, but there could be another side of the picture. As we say, it's like a hologram card. One way it's a smile, tilted a bit, and it becomes a frown. So the same process, the same operation that you think is probably a solution, somebody can turn around and argue that it's actually causing more harm or is causing some kind of harm. A new development in a certain community is happening, but maybe you're building more concrete structures and you're taking away the vegetation or the plantation. So, I mean, how do we actually balance the act out, especially in the narrative and in the perspective war?
I think that comes back to centering members of the community, making sure that narratives built, frameworks built are socially and environmentally conscious. That includes being culturally sensitive and not, overstepping boundaries or exploiting a community, socially or land environmentally. I also think socially conscious storytelling can help, maybe form a revolutionary tendency within people. I am a firm believer that revolution or transformative, sustainable change comes from the people. And I think that any enterprise, any business looking to solve an issue or create positive impact must center these stories and these realities if they want their change to truly be transformative. I think that also goes back to the relationship between the state and, a social enterprise. There are a few internal contradictions there, given that the hegemonic capitalist system is fueled by the state at the end of the day. And so I think that even being cognizant of those, internal contradictions is only a good thing. If anything, again, it goes back to my belief and my hope that positive impact can give people the tools necessary to drive change. And when we are working within, again, a certain community or alongside a certain segment of society, that we can hold, our clients accountable, different programs accountable to centering them and making sure that the profit motive is not above and beyond the importance of being socially and environmentally conscious when executing different programs.
Very true. I mean, it's not an either or nor situation. That's our key message today. Kudos to all the people who are working in the social enterprise sphere, which includes my panelists today, Fahad, Dr. Rizwan, and also Sarah, when she's trying to build the right narrative, the right story out there, is in fact helping impact-driven organizations. But more importantly, I think one of the key points that has come out of this conversation is to make sure that the governments and the large corporations have to work together. There's some music playing. I wonder where that is coming from. But as we are closing now, I'd like to bring up all my panelists up on the screen once again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Sarah, Dr. Rizwan, and Fahad for being here. what I want to end this conversation with is that the government and, of course, the large corporations need to become partners, and they have to become enablers in order, and that is actually a win-win situation. We know that at times government needs social enterprises to impart the message. We would not have gone through the COVID and the smart lockdown strategy without social enterprises being the backbone of it. Pakistan has recently faced one of the biggest humanitarian crises, with one third of the country being underwater. Help, rescue, rehabilitation would not have happened without social enterprises. So we take a lot of pride in the kind of backbone and structure we already have, but with the help of bigger donor agencies, with the government and big corporations, I think they have the potential to do more good, bring more social impact, and spread more positivity around. So thank you guys for being here. I hope that all those who've been engaged, who've been keyed in and listening to us, will pass the message around. If you did find something which particularly touched your heart, please tweet about that, and you can also share this conversation with your friends or colleagues who are like-minded. Thank you once again, and this is going to be available on the Express Tribune Facebook as well as the YouTube channel. We are once again very grateful to our panelists. Inshallah, I'll see you next time with another sustainability related subject. We are impact driven here, and I hope to see you again. Till then, take good care of yourself. Enjoy your weekend. Khuda Hafiz.